Okay, I just wanted a quick video here because Mike Winger posted a poll. Are you a Christian nationalist? Very happy to see that yes is winning in the poll, 53%, with only 33% saying no and 12% saying NA. But NA is what Mike Winger himself voted, as he said here. He said he has to vote NA for the same reason. That is, there is no possible way to answer this question because the term must be first be defined. The term must be defined. He says, I agree. I like what Dark Lord Revan says here. Why even run the poll then? Why did Mike Winger run this poll? Well, because he's trying to make a point. He's trying to say that you cannot be a Christian nationalist because nobody knows what it means. This is something that the anti-Christian nationalist crowd has been saying for a long time. But Mike Winger knows what it means. I remember years ago that Mike Winger had Joel Webbin on his podcast to talk about this, and Mike came away by saying, no, I don't agree. So Mike knows that he is not a Christian nationalist. But he thinks, it's more maybe convincing to others to try to say, well, who even knows? Because what is a Christian nationalist, right? Well, it's really not complicated. It's really not. It says it on the box. It's on the box. It reminds me of that margarine product that's called I Can't Believe It's Not Butter. There's the marketing angle. It's so good that, you can't believe that it's not butter, but it's not butter. Nobody is confused because it says it on the box. It says it's not butter. Well, what is Christian nationalism? Well, it says it on the box. It's a Christian nation. That's what Christian nationalists want. We want a Christian nation. Done. Done. What does that mean? Well, it means a nation that is Christian. Here's what I wrote. I wrote, it's literally in the name, Christian nationalism. We want a Christian nation. What does that mean? Does it mean X, Y, or Z about how you run or define your Christian nation? No, it doesn't have to. There can be a variety of flavors of Christian nations, but we want a Christian nation. They always want to do this when they don't like what you are doing. They want to confuse it. It's actually a left-wing tactic. It's an effeminate tactic. It's not a straightforward attack. It's not a clear attack of why they don't want a Christian nation. They just attack your words. They try and attack your definitions so that you cannot think clearly about what you are saying. But it is very clear. A Christian nationalist wants a Christian nation. End of story. Does that mean that we will use the exact laws of the Old Testament in our Christian nation? Maybe, maybe not. That doesn't mean it's a Christian nation or not a Christian nation. Does it mean that we will ban all Muslims or only ban the public worship of other gods? Maybe. There can be different opinions on that within Christian nationalism. We don't have to know every single law or rule of the Christian nation in order to be a Christian nationalist. We just want a Christian nation. Does that make sense? We don't have to explain ourselves any further. One thing, though, that I have found helpful in trying to explain this idea to others is it does not mean that everyone in the nation must be a born-again Christian, a redeemed, regenerate Christian. Which, first of all, is a ridiculous thing to even think because that isn't even the visible church. Anyone worth their salt in theology understands the difference between a visible church and the invisible church. The visible church is all the people in the church on Sunday morning, but the invisible church are the born-again, truly saved Christians, because those are the ones who are actually the church. We all get that, but we don't know who those people are. We can't tell if someone is a wolf in sheep's clothing, if someone is lying about being a Christian. So we just accept the public-facing, visible church to be that version of the church, and then we know that somewhere there is the invisible church, which is the actual born-again believers, right? So even in the literal church, we do not enforce such strict standards of saying, well, you can't be Christian unless everybody is born again, right? But I've heard that said about a Christian nation, like you cannot save a nation. The entire nation cannot be saved, right? Well, of course not. But when we say a Christian nation, we mean Christian in the sense of like a Christian school. A Christian school is Christian because they say they are. And that's all you need to know. There might be good Christian schools or bad Christian schools, but they're Christian schools because they say they are Christian schools. And that's all you need. Or a Christian business. You can have Christian businesses, and they're Christian businesses because they say they are. That's it. The end of story. And someone on the outside might say that's not a Christian business. But if the business themselves call themselves Christian, that's what you go with, basically. That's what we mean by Christian nation. We might say that's not really a Christian nation, but we want basically America, or whatever nation you're a part of, to out loud say we are a Christian nation. Does that mean it has to be put into the Constitution, put in writing? Who cares? We don't need answers to every single one of these questions. Don't allow the dialectic to confuse you. We want a Christian nation. That is the goal. And that's a goal worth fighting for. Some people, when they hear it spoken that simply, when they hear it put that clearly, they kind of push back and say, well, of course, then everybody would agree with that. No, that is not true. There are still many actual believing Christians who disagree with that. Mike Winger himself may be one of them who think that's a bad idea, because they think we need this sort of like secular, neutral, liberal middle ground so that we can maybe have more opportunities for the gospel. That's one reason they'll sometimes argue for this, right? If we had a Christian nation, then we wouldn't have as many foreigners around and non-Christians to share the gospel with. That's the kind of thinking that Christian nationalism comes against. Christian nationalism exists to fight back against that kind of thinking, against the modern global, liberal, neutral idea that you cannot have a religious order, that you have to have an irreligious, secular, political order. That is what Christian nationalism stands against. That's why Christian nationalism is still needed to this day, because we want a nation explicitly calling itself Christian. Not saying that Christianity is one of the religions that are tolerated inside of the religious toleration, the religious freedom of that nation. No, we want Christianity to be the nation's religion, as English is the nation's language, which is already controversial. You know, Donald Trump officially made the language of America English. Recently, this year, he made that our official language, and that was controversial, you know, because, what does that mean? Does he hate Spanish speakers? And that's the kind of thing we're pushing back against with the Christian nationalism. We want a Christian nation, so that means a nation that says explicitly, this is a Christian nation. How friendly you are to foreigners and other religions, that's something we could work out later. What kind of laws you have, all of that stuff, that's the kind of conversation we can work out after we win the first part. The first step is, do you accept you want a Christian nation? That's the whole purpose of the Christian nationalism conversation. Do you accept that this nation can be explicitly designated as Christian? Which I would say yes, and I think many believers would say yes. And we are continuing to push this because there is still that kind of, liberal openness in the church that doesn't like this idea for many reasons. And we need to keep pushing the Christian nationalism line so that we can continue to push past that liberalism and into a post-liberal world where we could say, no, this nation is for us and for our religion, and our religion is Christianity. Christ is above liberty, right? Freedom of religion is below Christ. Christ is above your freedom of religion. And if you don't like that, well, that's too bad, because Christ is king. Christ is the Lord of this country. He makes the rules, not you, not what you like. And end of story. This is a Christian nation.